You step off the plane in Tokyo. The air smells like clean rain and vending machine coffee. You have a guidebook, a pocket full of yen, and absolutely no idea that within the next 24 hours, you are going to break the law at least 6 times. Not because you are reckless, because Japan has rules you would never, ever think to look for. Welcome to the most polite country on earth, where a single wrong move can technically make you a criminal. Let's start with the one that sounds completely made up. For most of the last 70 years, it was illegal to dance in Japan after midnight. Not in a sketchy way, in any way. The law was called the Fueho, the Entertainment Businesses Control Law, and it was written back in 1948, right after the war. The original fear was that dance halls were fronts for prostitution, so lawmakers wrote a rule saying venues needed a special license to allow dancing, and even with that license, the dancing had to stop at midnight, or at latest 1 a.m. For decades, almost nobody enforced it. Then, in the 2010s, police suddenly started raiding nightclubs in Osaka and Tokyo, shutting them down, arresting owners, and physically stopping people mid-dance. Imagine being told by a police officer that your hips are now a legal problem. The backlash was so huge that musicians, club owners, and even members of parliament fought to change it. In 2015, the law was finally reformed, but for almost an entire human lifetime, dancing past midnight in Japan was, on paper, a crime. Now, put your hands on your stomach. Seriously, because in Japan, your waistline is the government's business. There is a real law passed in 2008 that people quietly call the Metabo Law. Metabo is short for metabolic syndrome. Under this law, companies and local governments are required to measure the waistlines of employees and citizens between the ages of 40 and 74. The limit is 85 centimeters for men and 90 centimeters for women. If you go over, you don't get fined personally, but your company or local government can face financial penalties, so they push you into counseling, diet programs, and follow-up checkups. Think about that. In most of the world, your belt size is a private matter. In Japan, it is a number on a national health spreadsheet. Sounds extreme? It gets stranger. Here's one you would never see coming. It is illegal to splash a pedestrian by driving through a puddle. This isn't an old, forgotten rule. It is part of the Road Traffic Act, and it is enforced today. If you drive your car through a puddle and soak someone standing on the sidewalk, you can be fined. The logic is actually kind, in a very Japanese way.
The law says drivers must operate their vehicles in a way that does not cause nuisance or harm to others, and being drenched in dirty street water counts. So the next time you are tempted to hit that big, tempting puddle near a crowd, remember, in Japan, that splash has a price tag. Let's talk about your medicine bag, because this is where tourists get into real trouble. You probably packed something for a cold, maybe a decongestant, maybe a nasal inhaler. Here is the problem. Common medications like Sudafed and certain Vicks inhalers contain pseudoephedrine, and pseudoephedrine is banned in Japan under the Stimulants Control Law. Bring it in your suitcase, and you are technically importing a controlled stimulant. People have genuinely been detained at the airport for carrying ordinary allergy medicine they bought legally at home. Your harmless drugstore cold remedy can become a customs nightmare. So if you are flying to Japan, the boring advice is the safest advice. Check your medicine before you pack it. Now, light a cigarette, but do not start walking, because in many parts of Japan, smoking while you walk down the street is against local law. The most famous example is Chiyoda Ward in central Tokyo, which banned walking and smoking back in 2002. The reasoning is surprisingly practical. A lit cigarette held at waist height is exactly at the eye level of a small child.
There were real injuries, so instead of banning smoking, the city banned walking with it.
You can smoke, you can walk. You just can't do both at the same time. And if you do, an officer can stop you and fine you on the spot. Let's go to your apartment, because even your garbage can get you in trouble. In Japan, throwing things away is a science with legal consequences. Trash must be sorted into very specific categories: burnable, non-burnable, plastics, cans, glass, paper, and each category goes out on a specific day. Put your burnable trash out on a non-burnable day, and it may simply be left on the curb with a bright sticker shaming you in front of your neighbors. But here is the part that genuinely surprises people. If you want to throw away a large appliance, a television, a refrigerator, an air conditioner, a washing machine, you cannot just dump it. Under the home appliance recycling law, you are legally required to pay a recycling fee to dispose of it properly. In most countries, you throw away your broken TV for free. In Japan, your broken TV charges you on its way out the door. Ready for one that sounds like it belongs in a samurai movie? Dueling is still specifically illegal in Japan under an anti-dueling law passed in 1889. Yes, the 1800s. The law made it a crime to challenge someone to a duel, to accept a duel, or even to act as a second, the person who helps arrange it. Over a century later, that law has never been erased. So in modern Tokyo, with its bullet trains and robot cafes, you can still, in theory, be charged under a Meiji-era statute written when people were genuinely worried about men settling arguments with swords and pistols at dawn. Now, look down at your phone. In some Japanese cities, walking while staring at your screen is against the rules. In 2020, the city of Yamato passed an ordinance banning walking while using a smartphone in public spaces. There is no jail time. There is no fine, at least not yet. But it became an official rule, complete with public signs and announcements, because so many people were colliding with each other, with poles, and with the edges of train platforms. It is one of the first laws of its kind in the world, a law against the most modern bad habit there is. Let's keep going, because your vape is a problem too. If you use an e-cigarette with nicotine, Japan has a surprise for you. Nicotine-containing e-liquid is regulated as a pharmaceutical product, which means you cannot legally buy it over the counter the way you can in many other countries. Vape shops in Japan mostly sell nicotine-free liquid.
So the very thing that is sold in convenience stores back home is treated like medicine here, tucked behind a wall of regulation most visitors never expect. Here is one that catches photographers and content creators completely off guard. You cannot just fly a drone wherever you want. Under the Civil Aeronautics Act, with rules tightened sharply in 2015, flying a drone over crowds, near airports, or above densely populated areas without permission is illegal. The tightening happened after a man landed a small drone carrying a trace of radioactive sand on the roof of the Prime Minister's office. That single stunt rewrote the country's drone laws almost overnight. So your dream shot, soaring over a Tokyo crossing, could end with a very serious conversation and a confiscated camera. And then there was the law hiding in plain sight, the one written into every adult magazine and video sold in the country. Under Article 175 of Japan's Penal Code, distributing obscene material is illegal, and for decades this has been interpreted to require the censoring, the famous mosaic blur, of explicit imagery. It is why an entire industry built itself around pixelation. A country known worldwide for a certain kind of content also has one of the most specific, strictly enforced obscenity rules anywhere. The blur you might have wondered about is not a style choice. It is the law.
Even owning a blade is controlled. Under the Firearm and Sword Possession Control Law, swords are tightly regulated, and genuine traditional blades must be registered with the authorities. You cannot simply buy an antique katana, tuck it in your luggage, and walk off into the night. That beautiful sword in the souvenir shop comes with paperwork, and skipping the paperwork is a crime.
So look at yourself now. You danced a little too late. You splashed a stranger. You packed the wrong cold medicine, smoked on the move, threw your trash out on the wrong day, and glanced at your phone while crossing the street. In your own country, none of that is a crime. You are not a bad person. You were just standing in a place where the line between normal and illegal was drawn somewhere you never thought to look. Because that's the strange truth about laws. They don't only tell you what's wrong. They quietly reveal what a country is most afraid of. And you stepped off that plane in Tokyo with a guidebook, a pocket full of yen, and absolutely no idea that the most polite country on earth had been writing rules about you long before you ever arrived.